I'm here with Paul Sudell from Ferguson and Deckard, Avalon's finest real estate agent. Is that what you call yourself?
I guess so. I guess you could call it that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would agree, man. I think you've taught me a lot over the years, and I'm just happy and excited to have you jump on a Zoom with me and chat a little bit about the market. And I mean, there's a lot of buyers out there that just don't have the inventory, and it needs to be discussed. And more importantly, I think anybody watching this video needs to be able to walk away with, what are we going to do if we're a buyer in this environment? Do we want to go in? Do we want to be aggressive and try to win deals? Or like, should we sit on the sideline? Like, I think we got to chat about that.
Right. No, I agree. There's a lot of folks in that camp where they're on the fence of understanding what the market is. That obviously the market has appreciated rapidly, no matter where you are. If you're in Avalon, Stone Harbor, if you're at any of the other shore towns, or even if you're on the outskirts of Philadelphia, for example, every market has appreciated. So you're looking at these prices, especially if you started looking a year ago, 2 years ago, and you're seeing the same house that sold a few years ago for X amount more. So the first thing to overcome as a buyer right now is to not be shocked by that new sticker price, for example. You have to understand that things aren't going to go backwards just simply due to lack of supply, increased demand. So you have to get over the fact that what this house sold for last year is now X amount more. So that's one thing, is trying to help a buyer understand that, in 6 months, that same house might be priced a little bit higher. So that's the first step of understanding and getting a feel for and comfortable with this market that we're in.
So, I think that what you just said there was pretty important, because getting a buyer to understand that the price today is substantially more than what it was 6 months ago or even a year ago. And oh, by the way, the price is probably going to continue to go up for the next 6 months to 12 months, and potentially even beyond that. I mean, I'm seeing data that's going to show housing prices continue to climb for the next 5 years, just as a result of a lack of supply. So, like, talking to that buyer today who's like, "Hey, Paul, it would be really great for me and my family to buy in Avalon or Stone Harbor."
Sure.
Like, what do you say to that buyer where you're like, "Hey, let me fill you in"?
Right. So our market, I mean, specifically our market in Avalon, Stone Harbor is a little bit different from most. We tend to be a place where there are substantial wealth. We have a lot of financial folks that invest in our market, and not just, a lot of folks that are way smarter than I am that invest their hard-earned dollars here. So what we're seeing a lot of is, even though these prices continue to tick up, we're seeing a lot of folks treat it almost as an investment. So our market's second homes. It's not a primary home. It's not a place where you're shopping for a school district for your kids to go to school in, so on and so forth. So yes, it's a vacation spot, but you also look at it as an investment opportunity. So we have a lot of folks that have taken some money out of the market, which is stable at times, a little unstable right now. And instead of trying to finance as much as they can on these properties, they're actually stuffing cash into these properties. So maybe they're coming down financing 50% or 70% instead of your typical 80%. And the reason they're doing that is they're parking cash in a safer investment, which is real estate, and which is a good market. So you want to find yourself in a good market, in a very stable market, market that you can see it grow year after year. So we're seeing a lot of folks pour their hard-earned money and cash into these properties. Obviously looking at that and taking advantage of the still low interest rates. Yes, they're going to tick up a little bit, but they're still historically low. So, that's not scaring the investors and the folks that are way smarter than I am out there in the marketplace buying properties.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up interest rates, because there's a lot of forecasts right now that suggest that rates are only going to go up temporarily and then they're
Right.
going to come back down. But every forecast that I'm seeing, and I don't know what you're seeing, but every forecast I'm seeing is home prices are going to just keep going up. And that's interesting because even with interest rates creeping up, one would think that the values could drop. I don't think we're going to see that.
No, I don't either. I mean, if I look at my island specifically, there's roughly, we're under 30 home sale listings total in Avalon Stone Harbor, where, 3 years ago we had 150, 175, and 7 years ago we had 250. So even if we had overnight, even if our inventory doubled overnight, that takes us to 60 homes for sale. And even that amount, we have such pent up demand, it's not going to do anything with the prices of these homes. So that's why a lot of people, and it's funny, another point is, you have some folks come down and say, well, as an investment opportunity to rent and the rent return that you get on these properties, it probably doesn't make much sense now because of the price points are so much higher and the rental values haven't necessarily caught up to them. Well, they have. The rental prices have caught up to them. And because of the low carry on interest and the monthly payments that these folks are paying, they're actually cash flowing a little bit better now than what they were, say, 5 years ago, because their mortgage payments are lower. So we have that influencing demand. We obviously have the attraction of, families that have made substantial money in the marketplace over the last few years, look elsewhere and actually even locally, more locally in the greater Philadelphia, New York area, come down to find a vacation home for their family and their children. And maybe they rent out half the season and maybe they keep it for themselves for the rest of the season. So all of that, nothing is going to change in that landscape for the foreseeable future. Even if we have a huge influx of inventory, it still won't do anything to the price points, and it won't decrease demand.
Yeah. I can't believe there's 30 homes for sale in when, a normal market would produce, 175 to even 250
Right.
listings. Yeah. And what's interesting is, you're probably talking to a handful of buyers, if not many, many, many buyers, and they're probably looking at these price points and they're looking at inventory and they're debating on what to offer. And I really want to dive into this because I really feel like the best offer strategy is going to produce the best results so that a buyer can take advantage of what next year and the year after and the year after is going to produce from an investment perspective.
Right.
So, going into and we know the difference between great inventory in the market, which is going to fly, and then we know the difference between some older dated inventory that might take a week or two. So
Right.
let's talk about that inventory that's like, all right, you got to get down here now, you got to check this out, and here's our offer strategy. What does that look like?
Sure. So as a buyer, you obviously want to put yourself in the best position in terms of in the eyes of a seller. So you actually kind of want to start in the seller's shoes and think, okay, if I were the seller, what would I be looking for? What would make me say, this is a no-brainer, let's take this opportunity? So obviously, ideally you want to try to avoid a bidding war or multiple offer situation. So the first thing that I always tell my clients is you want to be the first one in. You don't want to be the second one in, because that just means you're basically in second place just to start out with. So if you are the first one in, that can certainly benefit you in the long run if you have the same terms, same price points as a second offer that came in. So being the first one in is obviously key. So you have to, before you even start to put offers in, you want to educate yourself on the market. You want to be able to make a very quick decision, but an educated decision on this is a good opportunity or this is a bad opportunity. So my best clients have conversations with me 3 months before, even 6 months before they are ready to. And if we have an opportunity to go out and see a few properties, to put what they want and what their needs are into perspective, that's ideal. In this market, it's very difficult. 5 years ago, I could have showed you 15 properties and say, now you have an idea of what's out there, and maybe that helps you understand what you want to buy. But you don't have that luxury anymore. So you have to be quick. So a lot of times I'm calling my clients and asking them, can you get down here tonight? I realize it's a 2-hour drive, or can you get down here tomorrow? I'll FaceTime you. You want to be pre-approved if you're financing any of this. So obviously talk to a lender, make sure that you have all your finances in place, but the actual structure of the offer, you want to make it as clean as possible. So what does that mean? In terms of a buyer's offer, typically you have certain contingencies that protect you. Number one, a finance contingency that says the bank is telling me that they are going to lend me X amount of money at this interest rate. If they can, if the property doesn't appraise, then that contingency allows the buyer to get out of the contract, which hurts the seller. A home inspection, termite inspection, if those issues arise in those inspections that would scare a buyer off, obviously they can pull out of the contract. That hurts the seller. So as a seller, I ideally want to see as clean of a contract as possible. So number one, financing. If you can't pay cash, right? But if you know you're strong enough and you know you are financially stable and you can avoid having that finance contingency in there, we would recommend that. That means that you can still get financing. It just means that the deal is not contingent upon you having that finance commitment. The other is obviously a termite inspection and a home inspection. So this is a little bit more difficult for a buyer to get their head around. In my market, what we typically see out of a home or a termite inspection, if it's a house, newer than 10 years old, there really isn't much. If it's an older house, obviously more issues can arise, more structural issues. But really, you're using those contingencies to find structural damage. You're not looking to use them to find, a hole in the wall or a rip in the carpet. You're using them to find the big thing, the big ticket items. If the roof is leaking, if there are termites in the crawl space or the sill plates and things need to be replaced, all those sorts of things. Typically what we see is the worst case scenario, even if there's mold in the house, in the crawl space, at the max, you're spending is $5,000 to $8,000 on a home inspection. So you have to ask yourself at these price points that we work with, the $3 million, $4 million, $2 million, $10 million buyers, is it worth to lose out on a house of that magnitude for $5,000 to $8,000? So if it is worth it, then put the home inspection in. But if you feel comfortable enough, listen, we realize we're going to miss some things. There might be some issues down the road. Maybe there's an electrical issue or a plumbing issue that's a quick fix. Take them out of your contract, make it as clean as possible to be in the best position for the highest price and best terms as a buyer.
Yeah. So being first in sounds like it's pretty critical. Like that's the first thing you came out of the gate with, was like, get the offer and be the first one there. It shows that you're serious. And then as it pertains to all of the potential contingencies or, contractual items, keep it as clean as possible. First in, clean as possible. And let's face it, like, you could still do a home inspection. It's just not a contingency.
Right. Yep. You can do it for your own education, but ideally you don't make it a contingency if you have that luxury.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good stuff. So great inventory probably has 20, 30. How many potential buyers are going to put offers on great inventory?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to say. When a property is listed just right in our market, which is obviously a little different from other markets. I've heard from some of my other friends that are real estate agents, and a different market in a primary home market where they have 50, 75 offers on a property, which just blows my mind. In our market, it's a little bit different just because of the price points that we deal with. But a good property might have 6 offers, 10 offers on it. And there's no doubt that they're clean offers and they're strong. So, you obviously the biggest thing is feeling comfortable about making that offer. And the way you can feel comfortable about that is being educated on the market, being educated before you place that offer on what you think that seller is going to be looking for. So those two things, being geared up for that and feeling comfortable about that is really the way you're going to maximize your offer, maximize your opportunity.
All right, I gotta ask, like, it's 3.5 million, it's 5 years old, and that's the asking price. And I mean, that to me is great inventory.
Right.
Like, that's gonna fly, right?
Yep.
It's good. You're gonna have 6 to 10 offers, probably in the first 3 to 5 days. You got to be the first one in. You probably have to have ultimately no contingencies in your contract. And you potentially, if probably, you're going to have to go over the asking price. What would you do? What would you recommend your client? Hypothetical situation, you know the inventory. I got a feel for it, right? 5-year-old, it's going to fly. What are we doing?
Well, and the next thing you have to ask yourself is, what is a property like this going to cost? Once this goes under contract, what's the next one going to cost? So sometimes you can't look back and say, well, the last one that was very similar to this in the same area went for 3,350,000, and now this is 3.5. So why am I paying 3.5 when that person paid 3,350,000? A, that's no longer there. The market is appreciating, and it's not going down. So if you don't get this property, what's the next one going to cost? The next one's going to cost you $150,000, $200,000 more. So then you have to calculate, okay, am I willing to take the risk of just going in, just below list price or at list price, or am I willing to go a little bit over and not get so caught up emotionally in what they're asking for a list price? But if I don't get this property, what's the next one going to cost me? So you almost have to think forward in a few months, because again, we're low on inventory. There may not be another one for 3 months, 6 months, a year. And at that point, how much is the market appreciating? It could be more than 150,000. It could be 300,000. It could be 400,000. So there's been opportunities where I've recently been in where, a $4 million property went $300,000 over list price, and nobody really saw that coming, but it made sense when you stepped back, looked at it. It was a few years old, really nice, very well taken care of house. And then the comparables around the marketplace supported that, $4.3 million sale price. So don't always get caught up on what the list price is, because it could cost you a substantial amount of money if you lose out on that property.
You bring up something that a lot of buyers haven't had to think about. And that is, what is the future value of that property? And if you wait, what is it going to cost you to wait?
Right.
And that's something that a lot of buyers haven't had to think about historically. And that's something that is really, really important right now. And it's not even just your market, it's every single market. If you're not thinking about what it's going to cost you not to win this deal, you got to really be the first in. You got to have the best offer. You got to have minimal contingencies, and you got to be really flexible to appease these sellers. That's good stuff, man. Like, I really think you nailed this.
Hopefully we did.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
What else? Did we miss anything?
Oh, there's plenty to talk about. How much time do you have?
Hey, man, we got all the time in the world.
No, I just, again, it's an interesting time right now with the low inventory obviously being key. We still have a lot of folks are flush with cash or very financially sound. So, there are a lot of folks looking. You look at the stock market and you see what's happening there and the volatility, and a lot of people have made quite a bit of money over the last 10 years. So they're looking at that and looking at using real estate to try to diversify their portfolio. So, as an investment standpoint, obviously you try to make smart investments and you try to park your cash, your hard-earned cash, in the right places. So just you know, no matter if it's our market or another market, make sure you're in the right market, number one, and buying into a good product, number two, and just making those right decisions and making the educated decisions.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Tell us more about what you do when you're not slinging real estate.
What do I do when I'm not slinging real estate? So I have three beautiful daughters. They're 7, 5, and 2. We're a very active family. I have a beautiful wife, and we try to do any outdoor activity possible around any time of year. So being in the Northeast, obviously the winters aren't that great. So we get out, we go snowboarding. My 7 and 5-year-old are on their way to being very good snowboarders. So we try to get up to the mountain as much as we can. But in the summertime, if you're anywhere down, you know, Avalon, Stone Harbor, Cape May area, you'll see us on the beach, on the boat. My girls surf too. So we try to soak up as much as possible as we can. And this time of year, being at March, April, right now, we're just heavy into soccer. So it's outdoors, trying to get them fresh air, trying to get them into activities, and every once in a while, we like to go fishing.
Yeah, right. There you go. That's awesome, man.